Welcome to Thinking Deeply About Primary Education, the podcast that makes time and space to think about pedagogy, teaching and learning, professional development, anything of interest to time-poor but enthusiasm-rich primary teachers. In this episode, we're going to go back into the archives to find an answer to a question from an inspirational teacher. For those of you who are hearing this answer for the second, third, fourth time, and hopefully it's a useful refresher. And for those of you who are hearing it for the first time, hopefully this points you towards an episode that you may want to listen to now. As you're listening, I think it'd be fantastic to think about how you might respond to this question. And why not share it in the comments wherever you're listening, whether that be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope it provides useful food for thought for your professional development this year. Without further ado, let's spend some time thinking deeply about primary education. The thing about Lloyd in class, and we're thinking about how we can support those teachers who are just getting into the game, who are looking to develop their practice. What would you say the four most prominent features of a Lloyd lesson would look like? What would they be?
Right. So I'd probably boil it down to four things, in a sense of probably four practical applications, I would say, that I utilize to try and leverage as much sort of understanding and learning within the session as I can. So I would say the first one would be the cold call / no opt out. I think that is, and like I said, this is the work of Doug Lamov and you know, Tom Sheridan's picked up on it with his work with walkthroughs, and we'll touch on that later or whatever. But in terms of the power of that, just that nuance of being able to give that understanding that a child is going to be picked, and that the culture in the class is supportive, and that they know the accountability is there, that they're going to get asked, and if they do get asked, they don't give the old, I don't know what I'm doing, don't know. You know, even if they're in a checkout, there's no checkout. It's like, okay, no problem, but we're going to come back to you. I'm going to jump over here and I'm going to speak, and you know, and you bounce around the room, and you really you glean that understanding of what's going, trying to get an understanding of what's going on in their mind, you know, with their understanding of things, and then what you do with it. And I think that's something that that as I've gone on with this technique, that is something like what you actually, the purpose then. So it's great. It's a great technique, right? And I've just said about why, but it's then like the purpose was actually what do I do with that then? Once I understand, how does that impact? Like, what do I change? What do I remodel? What do I move? What pace does that push me forward? Does that accelerate me forward? You know, it's that like granular thinking and decision making that on the coal face that is hard and takes a lot of time to master. But the deep purpose of doing that stuff is what I think I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I think it's something that is integral to my sessions. That's the first one. Second one is the problem pair. So the problem pair effect, and just having that would be that it's maths, be it it could be RE. You know, at the end of the day, having a structure to go from, having something that a worked example on the board, be that whatever it is. It just scaffolds our thinking so much with children. I think it's a valuable tool. And I know there's something that I haven't moved to yet is the I, we, you model, obviously, which builds on that. Something that I know a lot of schools do. I know Matt Swain and Step Academy Trust do a lot. That's very deeply embedded in their places. A lot of schools do as well. A few schools locally as well that do it, and I think that's something that I probably hadn't thought about before, but is something that's where I want to take it next with my how I show problems and how I present information as well, without it being too extraneous as well. So having them covered up as you go, so revealing them as well, so that there's not too much information, too much extraneous load for going on the board. So that's the second one. So I've got cold call, no opt out, and a problem pair. My third thing would probably be a diagnostic or hinge multiple choice question. Now, Diagnostic Questions by Craig Barton, wonderful bank of resources there. I'm speaking mathematically now, I suppose. I do a lot. I teach a maths group daily, and they're an integral part to what I do. I write my own ones as well, and just that ability to expose misconception and to develop rich conversation around what's going on. So the way I kind of use the diagnostic question will be to sort of, I'll ask the children to give me an answer, A, B, C, or D, and they show me on their hands, so A, B, C, or D. And then 5 is I don't know, and I tell them I want to see if you don't know, because I'd rather than them guessing, I'd want to know that they don't know. And then I get them to put their heads down, so there's no biases, and they're not drawn by any of the children. They present either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's great because they've got their heads down, so I can make notes quite oblivious to the fact that I'm kind of just picking out those people. That then gives me a good selection of who I want to cold call moving forward as I go into the next part of the lesson. So I'm kind of systematically using that information. I'm also then going, okay, 6 of them have picked D, which is the misconception of this. I'm going to straight away hit that, and I'm going to address that misconception. So it's responsive, and it's that idea, it's that purpose of why you're doing something. So having a diagnostic hinge question, and I'm currently looking into the confidence weighted ones, which I've managed to get some information from names. We'll leave the names out of it, a powerful learning tool that is, and I think it's underused actually within education. So cold call, no opt out, problem pair, diagnostic hinge multiple question. My last thing is live marking at pace. It's that old tracking and marking thing, like, as we're going along, and how you move children along, and you ensure the right kind of pitch and the right amount of practice and deliberate practice of something, and then deepening as well. And how do we move children, onto something that they need. Just today, reading Neil Allman's blog about challenge, the challenges for the learner. So that process of live marking at pace enables that to happen. It enables that ability for you to allow the learner to connect with the challenge that you want for them, rather than the generic, forced out sort of thing. You can personalize that challenge a little bit more. Can you do this for me? Can you flip that around? Yeah, and okay, that is hard, and that takes practice. It takes time. It takes effort. I still haven't mastered it by any stretch, but I do think there's a real value in that. So to sum up, cold call, no opt out, problem pair, diagnostic hinge, multiple questions, and live marking at pace. They're my 4 probably integral things for what you'd see in my lessons anyway.
The 2 things that really stand out are, the first is that they're very well described in terms of, they've been given a name, and they've almost given a name to things that effective teachers did really well. But if you're trying to pass that information on to your less experienced colleagues, you need a title to say, okay, cold calling, and then all of the sort of the underpinning that goes with it. That's you then discuss that, because I think in the past I've heard it, we don't do hands up or things like that, and really having that name really helps your less experienced teachers, because you've got a hook on which to bring everything else together. Because there's so much more to it than children not putting their hands up, as you really well described. But having that name, that title, allows us then to attach other pieces to it.
That's right. It gives a shared dialogue as well, doesn't it, in terms of bringing that consistency to your school or group of schools, and kind of what Doug Lamont says. He says, "See it, name it, do it." Isn't it? Is that what his term is? It's a great. It builds on that concept, isn't it, of that shared dialogue. You're absolutely right. It's an integral part to getting the culture right, I think, in your schools.
Yeah, I think I came across strongly in all 4 of your points. Thinking about diagnostic questions, we're under no illusions as to what the role of those questions are, and so that makes it easier for us to implement them, because we know what we're trying to achieve. And then obviously your expertise builds over, years of utilizing them. And the second thing that stood out was how each of them connected to one another. And so, for instance, if anyone with less experience or just starting out is listening, then I suppose they should think about, yes, we can break each of those down into separate parts, but together, that's where the real strength comes from. Because with your significant expertise in the classroom, with your experience, you can take those separate parts and you can bring them together into one sort of homogeneous and effective tool, which will get the best out of your learners and which will inform you going, as you said, going forward. And yeah, so I think those are the two things that really stood out. And I think if I think about my own practice, those are definitely some of the things that I would consider integral to my instruction and my teaching in the classroom too. Nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on there. You're spot on. And yeah, that whole time thing together, like it's a biggie actually, a real biggie.